In a free market, no one's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or have a mortgage payment or even because you're a really nice person. Great salesmanship is about the value you provide another human being.
I think most folks on here are familiar with you and probably have all read the book. I know the book is tremendously popular around Kansas City, which is
Thank you.
awesome. The books actually are tremendously popular and come up in conversation all the time. So I think it's great to have you and great to have everybody here together, I know, to speak with you. And then afterwards, we're going to talk some with Scott Havens, who I think, probably represents a lot of the spirit of the book and the way he has built networks and helped create opportunity. It'd be awesome to have him share some of what all's inspired him to do that as well.
Well, I hear great things about Scott from everyone who speaks about him and writes about him. So it's an honor to for you to associate him with the Go-Giver message. So it's I'm truly honored by that. And I see Scott is on the call. Hi, Scott.
So while we start, I'd love to hear a little bit, just about your backstory, before the Go-Giver. What were some of your inspirations and what led you to this journey? And then what are some of the things you've learned since then and since the Go-Giver and the Go-Giver experience and how you've seen that impact folks, not just in Kansas City, but really around the world now in 28 languages. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, my start in business was just I was a broadcaster and started out in radio doing sports, and then I was actually the late night news guy for a very small ABC affiliate in Oklahoma, and I wasn't very good at it, and I graduated into sales. The challenge was I knew nothing about sales. I had no experience in sales, in terms of any kind of professional selling. And the company where I started, their training was, we'll say, negligible. And by that, I mean non-existent. So I was kind of out there on my own and really floundered for the first few months. I had the, Jim Rohn put it well, the late, great, business philosopher. He would have said, I had the motivation, but I didn't have the information. Right. So basically I was working really hard, running around and not accomplishing anything. Of course, you can have the information, the knowledge, but if you don't have the motivation and the inspiration, that's not going to be helpful either. So it's not one or the other. It's not an either or, it's a both. And I didn't have the knowledge. And so one day I was in a bookstore, and I came across these books, these two books on selling, which doesn't seem like a big deal now, but 40 years ago, it just wasn't as prolific as it is now. And so I was just surprised. I really had that's how ignorant I was about this. I had no idea there was such a thing about how to sell, that there was a methodology, that there was a skill set. And the two books were, one was by Tom Hopkins and one was by Zig Ziglar, two luminaries, of course. And I got the books, and just, what I would do is after work, I would, until the wee hours of the morning, I would read and study and highlight and underline and note take and dog ear and practice and rehearse and just everything. And really within a few weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. And what this said to me was that if you have a system, a methodology, you can pretty much accomplish whatever it is you choose to accomplish, within reason, of course. I mean, I wanted to be third baseman for the Boston Red Sox growing up. As much as I wanted it, I lacked only one thing, that was talent, and so that wasn't going to happen. But something like sales, leadership, and most other things we can learn. To this day, I personally define a system as the process for predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, well, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and eventually you'll get the desired results of B. That was a good start for me, but it wasn't a turning point, actually. Now, by the way, one of the great things about learning sales is you start to understand how important personal development as a whole is, right? So I started getting all the books that all of you probably have on your bookshelf. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, Psycho-Cybernetics, As a Man Thinketh, all the greats, all the classics, and started filling my mind and filling my heart with all the good and as we know, success really is an inside job. It manifests outwardly as a result of how much we grow. That was fun. And I was doing pretty well in sales for a couple of years. And then I got a new sales job with a company, and it was a high-end product. And I just could not seem to get off the ground. And I was in a slump. And, as many of you know, being in a slump is not only a yucky feeling, but you start to do the opposite of what you really should do to get out of the slump. Rather than focus on the other person and how you can serve them, it becomes, oh no, what am I going to do? Is this going to get the sale? Is it right? And I think that's sort of natural. And that's certainly where I was at. So one day I had gone out on a selling appointment, and it turned out to be a non-selling appointment, and it was because of my own ineptness and my own lack of where the focus should be. And I remember coming back to the office, and there was a guy there, uh, much older guy, which is interesting because that was 40 years ago, which means that much older guy is probably my age now, right? Decrepit old guy, no, he was one of these people. He wasn't even in the sales department. I think he was an engineer, and he retired soon after. And nice guy. I didn't know him really well, but he was one of these guys, and I'm sure you've all known someone like this, who he didn't say a lot, but when he did, it always seemed to be profound. So when he said to me, Burg, and he was a last name kind of guy, he said, Burg, and I think he saw me as sort of like Joe, the protagonist in The Go-Giver, who I would write about with John David Mann years and years later. I think he saw me as Joe, that young, ambitious, aggressive, up-and-coming salesperson, person who meant well, but whose focus was totally out of alignment with where it needed to be. And he said to me, so he said, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, absolutely, please do. And he said, Berg, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, don't have making money as your target, he said. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And boom, that hit me. That's when I realized that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Just as I know Harry would say, great leadership is never about the leader. Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. Great salesmanship is about the value you provide another human being. It's how they will benefit from your product or service and anything else you bring to the table. It's about touching the lives of those who come into your life and making them better off just as a result of knowing you, right? And, so when you think about it, one of the things that John David Mann and I say in the follow-up to The Go-Giver, Go-Givers Sell More, is that money is simply an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means the key is that the focus must be on the value you provide another human being. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided.
Let's go to some questions, and if you have questions, type them in the chat, and I'll open you up. But we've got Maddie, who's probably where Bob was 40 years ago now, who's just starting on this sales journey. And Maddie has a question.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Maddie.
I'm probably the only person on this call who's never read your book, but I have definitely heard of it, and I'm looking forward to reading it in the future. My question is, what did I write? How do you serve without being a people pleaser? Is there a difference? What is the difference?
Okay, so it's a wonderful question, and let's look at this now, beginning with a premise of what is meant by people pleaser, because I'm going to guess that when you say people, and please make sure to tell me if I'm wrong, when you say people pleaser, it's kind of doing things in such a way that's almost self-sacrificial, that you're kowtowing to others and maybe even being taken advantage of. Okay, so is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, keep talking. I think you got it.
Okay. And so now I would say being a people pleaser, with the definition I would use, is a good thing. And that is pleasing others, help it bringing value to another human being. After all, remember, in a free market-based economy, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. In a free market, no one's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or have a mortgage payment or even because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you only because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason they should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. So it's actually incumbent upon the salesperson, entrepreneur, business owner, whomever, to please other people to the degree you please other, right? But that's not what you meant. When we say people pleaser, we mean that in a way that's more of a negative. It's again, so first I want you to understand something, and this is so very important, Maddie. There is nothing about being a go-giver that is congruent with being anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. When we say go-giver, we're simply talking about that person who understands that shifting your focus, just like that gentleman advised me, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving, in this case, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some woo-woo, way out type of magical, mystical reasons. No, it makes actually rational sense. When you're that person who can move your focus off yourself and onto bringing them immense value, which we could say pleasing them, right? Helping them accomplish what they need, discovering what they need, want, and desire, and helping them get it, which is what selling is. When you're that person who does that, they feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to buy from you. They want to refer you to others. So that's really what we're talking about. If you're ever in a business situation where you feel people are taking advantage of you, well, that's not something you would allow. Now, it's always, we need to know how to tactfully and effectively, diplomatically, be able to say no when that's appropriate. But a lot of it is setting the boundaries, framing the boundaries correctly from the beginning. And again, these are skills that, that certainly can be learned, and you'll do that as you go more and more into the sales process. But yes, your focus is always on pleasing the other person. You're right. But being a people pleaser in the way that you mentioned, no, that wouldn't be part of it. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thanks. I think the main thing that stood out was the boundary setting and still having the ability to say no.
Exactly. Sure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Go to Drew.
Hey, what a great start to the day. Thank you so much for your comments. Being us old crusty guys now, thinking back 40 years, you must have tons of lessons learned on how you continue to give back to the youth in your organization in terms of teaching them what's important about the target continues to be a struggle, at least from my perspective, about young kids who want to do the right thing. What are some of your lessons that you've learned associated with getting the young kids to understand that the reward comes after focusing on that target, as you discussed? That's such a profound way of looking at it.
Thank you. Well, it's an educational process because human nature is such that, we're looking out for ourselves, right? We are self-interested creatures. That's how we were built. And we never suggest that people deny their self-interest, because that's denying human nature, right? And successful people, we live in truths and we understand. Now, the key though is understanding that human nature doesn't need to control us, right? We are people of ego, but that doesn't mean we have to be controlled by our ego. We are people who are, emotion-based as human beings, right? Anyone in sales knows this, but we don't have to be controlled by our emotions. So let's add to that the fact that the message that the world gives us, and a lot of times this is everything from upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, the internet. What are kids today hearing? That business people, if they want to be successful, have to be ruthless and horrible and terrible and do it on the backs of such horrible and incorrect messages. But that's what we're dealing with, okay? I mean, and hey, in my day, it was J.R. Ewing, who was the stereotypical capitalist who just wanted to take advantage of people and that's just how things are framed. So education is very, very important. And it's first being able to share that again, to the degree we're free market, and I'm not talking about cronyism where, businesses pay government officials for special rules and regulations. That's not free market capitalism. That's cronyism, and that's not what we're talking about. It's important that kids understand what free market capitalism really is and why it's so beneficial to everyone involved, okay? So that's first. But secondly, now we've got to also help them see where it's in their best interest to actually place the interest of the other person even before themselves. This sounds paradoxical, and yet it's not. Let's go back to what we said earlier, that no one's going to buy from you because you need the money. So it's important that our kids understand and that the young entrepreneurs understand that nobody's going to buy from them because they're proud of their product or service, thinks it's great, thinks others should have it, and wants to make a lot of money. So to the degree that they can understand that and learn how to place their focus on, and again, I'm going to say pleasing others, right? Bringing immense value to others, that's the degree that they are going to be successful.
Morning. Thank you for your presentation today. It's remarkable.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
So just being new into, and I don't like to call myself a salesman, but at the end of the day, I think we all are to a certain extent. How do you overcome the internal struggle that's kind of inside you when you're trying to promote your product or share the value of your product when you know internally that it could do nothing but benefit the customer without feeling guilty and I guess kind of sensing that you're trying to pitch somebody something, if that makes sense?
Okay. Actually, two good questions, because I'm going to go back to the first thing that you said, if you don't mind, and I'm going to respectfully challenge a premise that you have, and that is that you hate to call yourself a salesperson. Okay. Because if you don't like the idea that you are a salesperson, it's hurting your sales, right? It's because there's an incongruency there. So let's look at what many people think selling is and what it really is. There is a misconception about sales. Obviously, there are many people who think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. Well, we all know that's not selling. That's called being a con artist, right? Being a thief, really. And that's not selling. Selling, by definition, is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it. That's what a salesperson does. Now, interestingly enough, the Old English root of the word sell is salan, which meant to give. So literally, when you're selling, you're giving. Now, someone might say, well, wait a second, Burg. That's clever and everything, but isn't that just semantics? And I'm going to suggest that I don't think it is just semantics. What are you, when you're in a presentation with someone, okay, you're presenting, you are selling. So what are you giving when you're selling? I suggest you're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately immense value. So if you're a salesperson, I want you to be proud of being a salesperson. I want you to be grateful that you're a salesperson and know that you're doing a service for others by helping that person own from you. Now, so how do you, the second part of your excellent question, so how do you promote yourself? How do you market yourself without coming across like, you want a person to understand that this is something that's going to benefit them? Well, obviously, at first, it depends what you do, which will sort of determine how you're going to go about it. So may I ask what line of work you're in?
Financial services.
Okay, financial services. So really, you help people create and manage wealth, set up a situation where they never again have to worry about money, where they can enjoy their retirement, they can leave a legacy to their children, to charity, to all these wonderful different things. Okay, now, you know it's a great thing. They know it's a great thing. Now, they know it's a great thing, but they don't necessarily want to do it, because who wants to take money that they could be using for something else and actually put it away for a thing? So what you're doing is helping them to understand why the immediate or the instant gratification will actually cause them less happiness than will putting away for a longer term down the line. Okay. Now, this is one reason why relationships are so important. As you know, as the premise of everything I've taught for the last 30 years or whatever has since I've been speaking and writing, it has been, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know,
Right.
like, and trust. To the
Right.
degree that they know, like, and trust you, that's the degree they're going to be open to you when you start asking them the discovery questions, as in, what are they looking to accomplish? If they were to set money aside, why would they be doing it? Okay, so you need to find out. You need to not communicate why it's a great idea for them to invest. You need to ask them why it's a great idea to invest, and let them share with you what their needs, wants, and desires are. Then it's a matter of creating something, for them. And of course, to the degree that people refer you to others, well, that's also the degree that know, like, and trust is sort of leveraged already,
Right.
and it's a lot easier to create that. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I'm, as you can tell, I'm a police officer, but I'm transitioning out. And I guess the biggest thing is what I've learned is a lot of people already have financial services and a financial planner in place.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do. And pulling them from one to another is a whole nother challenge in and of itself.
Sure. So there are a couple of things here. First, yes, a lot of people already have a financial advisor, but a lot of people don't. And it's a big world. Okay. So there's two types of people that you're looking at here. One is you're finding the people who don't yet have a financial advisor, but the other ones are the ones who already do, but you still create that relationship with them. And when the know, like, and trust is developed, and you're in a position to be able to maybe introduce them to the idea that perhaps you can look at certain aspects of what they're doing, and see see what you might be able to add. Okay. Now, remember something. People already have a lot of people already have a financial advisor, but a lot of people aren't necessarily happy with their financial advisors.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what you want to do, and I remember learning this in, I think 1995, I think it was, from Harvey McKay's wonderful book, Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. He said, position yourself as the number 2 person on as many lists as possible. Right, on many people's lists as possible, because eventually that number 1 person is going to retire, they're going to move, they're going to get fired, they're going, they're going to in some way mess up, they're going, something's going to happen.
Right.
And when that's the case, you want to be that number 1 person. So start establishing, creating those relationships, even before that they're, that they're, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what I've been working on with the help of all these people on this screen right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. Let's
Thank
go to Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
So my question, my favorite law is the law of authenticity. And I think one of the things that I struggle with is, how do you walk the line between being too real and transparent and being too vulnerable to the point where people judge you while still being authentic?
Okay. And I'm looking for Lauren here so I can see her, and I'm not finding you. So please pardon me for not. Okay. So Lauren, let's go to that question, and let's then also go to the premise of authenticity and what authenticity really is and what it's not. You might, if you've read the book, you might recall that Deborah, one of the mentors in the story, said that the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And what she learned is that all the skills, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all very important, they're also not all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel safe with you. They know you. They like you. They love you. They trust you. They feel very confident because you're the same person. Now, what is this authenticity? What's its essence? Well, I always loved a quote attributed to Gandhi. I don't know if Gandhi ever said this or not. You know how, like, when they're just wonderful quotes, they're attributed to either Gandhi or Mark Twain, or Benjamin Franklin, it seems like. So and they're not always said by those people, but they're great quotes. And this one from Gandhi, if he said it, or even if he didn't, is a wonderful quote. And he was talking actually in terms of integrity, which is to be integral is to be whole. So it's to be authentic. Okay. And that is, integrity is when everything you think and everything you feel and everything you say and everything you do are in alignment. To me, authenticity is congruency. Now, I think there is a mistake that many people today make when it comes to authenticity, and that is confusing authenticity with transparency. Now, don't get me wrong. 9 times out of 10, transparency is a great thing, but it's not always appropriate. And let me explain what I mean here. A couple explanations, I guess. One is, let's say you have a prospective customer who you've gotten to know, and this customer isn't a small talk type of person. They're not a relationship building kind of person. They're the person who, they just kind of want the facts. They want to know what they want, their questions answered. They want you to know if you can provide them what they need. They're nice. They're a nice person. But after the hi, how are you, good, how are you, it's down to business. Okay, that's just how they are. And we've got to respect others because we're not our customers. And we've got to relate to them as they want to be related to. And so you woke up, God forbid, so it shouldn't happen, but you woke up with a horrible neck ache. I mean, a horrible, really bad neck ache. And you say to this person, hey, good morning. And he says, hi, how are you? Now, if you're going to be transparent, you're going to say, Oh, I gotta tell you, my neck is just killing me. I mean, I went to sleep last night. Everything's fine. I don't know what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And you start getting, it's not appropriate. It's transparent, but it's not appropriate. Authentic is handling yourself in a way that you know your job is to make your client, your prospective client, comfortable and do your job as you do it. Okay. And that's authentic. Now, when you go to the chiropractor later and she says, "How are you?" Now you can start, now you can be transparent, talk about your neck, and that's totally appropriate. Okay. So we need to make sure we don't confuse authentic with transparent. There's certain things that are, you should be transparent. We should all be transparent about. But there are certain, but transparency and authenticity aren't necessarily the same thing. My question would be, are you congruent with your values when you are relating to your prospect, customer, or client? Are you honest, trustworthy? Do you know your stuff? Are you focused on them? Those sort of things. And that's really, I think, what it comes down to. Does that help?
It certainly does. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I hope we can get a couple more of these in before you have to go. Mary Ricketts.
That's okay. We'll get a couple more in.
This is just phenomenal. So I will again say thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mary.
Here's my question. What's your process to determine when it's time to stop giving?
Mm-hmm. So in other words, and let me just make sure I understand your question. You've given value to someone, you've tried to create a relationship with this person, and really there's just no, you kind of get the feeling that it just isn't happening. They're not going to either do business with you, refer you, they don't have the same interest in, right? Is that it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So first, again, let's go back to the premise that there's nothing about being a go-giver that says that you're a doormat or self-sacrificial. Now, we don't always know what another person's thinking. So it's always great when we can tactfully and gently, in a way that doesn't make them defensive, ask if there's, let them know how much you have enjoyed, getting to know them or referring them, so forth, without making them feel badly about it, but just saying, as I've noticed, we really haven't done business in some deeper ways. And I'm just wondering if there's something maybe I should be aware of, that would help us to strengthen our, relate. Now, you're going to get the idea from their answer, and they may just give you lip service, or they may say, I don't know. But I think you'll kind of get if there's something there or if there isn't. And if there's not, you just, you don't continue to lean into the relationship. That doesn't mean, hey, there's no relationship with that, I'll still refer them because I know they're the best person for someone. That's a different thing. But you would not continue to give value in a way that you're really looking to go deep in developing the relationship, because this is just one of them that's not going to happen.
Hey, Bob, thank you again for being here. It's huge for Kansas City and the business community to have you on the line. So two-parted question. I'll try and make it quick. I'm always curious about suggested reads. So obviously we're all going to buy another copy of your book, all of your books, after this call, but I'm curious if there's maybe an example of, in the business community or in the United States, a go-giver that you're like, man, this person right here is a perfect example of a go-giver. And maybe that's an autobiography or biography we could go check out. Second part to my very quick question is, I'm curious if you have suggested reads maybe outside of business, personal development, that are more focused on, could be spiritual, or could just be completely outside of business. Maybe a book that really impacted you, or a book that you think is a must read for high school students these days.
Thank you. So the first one, you've got Harry Campbell right there, who's a legend in leadership to many of us. So that's a great one. And I'm very big on reading biographies and autobiographies. The autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, to me, is one of the best books I've ever read. It's so filled with immense wisdom. He's one of the people I consider to be my mentor, and I read everything I can about him because I never stop learning. Booker T. Washington is another one who's sort of in my master, you know how we all have a mastermind in our mind of people we ask what would they do and how they would handle. So if you can read books on him and his wisdom, he has both an autobiography and also books and writings about him. You know, gosh, I'm just thinking, you know, looking up at my, you know, Calvin Coolidge was another one. Amity Shlaes wrote a great book on Calvin Coolidge, who's my favorite president, and so forth. And there's just so many great biographies out there and autobiographies, and we can learn from these people. Then I think there are books like you know, a book like Principles by Ray Dalio, which has so much wisdom from, you know, someone who has done so well and has so many great, and again, when it's principle based, which are principles, that's the key. I think any books that you can read on human nature, the study of human nature, is an excellent book. Robert Greene's last book was called Human Nature, and it's a fascinating study. And then there's a book I'm reading right now that's become one of my all-time favorite books. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. It's called Cascades: How to Create a Movement That Drives Transformational Change by Greg Satell, Satell. It is absolutely magnificent. Books such as Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Again, it's a book in which you're going to understand how people act, why people think the way they think. Now, one of my all-time favorites is called The Secret of Selling Anything by another Harry who is a hero of mine. This is Harry Brown, Browne, the late Harry Brown. It was actually published after he passed away about 10 or 12 years ago. It was from two manuscripts or two brief manuscripts that were on his computer that his widow found, and she thankfully let someone know about this who was an independent publisher. And really, it's about the first part of the book is about understanding human nature. It's the fundamentals of human nature that everyone should know. And then the second part of it is how to bring this into the sales process. And Harry Brown was really a magnificent human being and a great people person and just a fantastic guy. I did a blog post on this book. I'm going to put the link here, burg.com/blog, and then search in the search, just write The Secret of Selling, and then it should come up. And the name of the article is The Secret of Selling Need Not Be a Secret. Again, now it was written in the 1960s. So I asked to please pardon the, 60s type of language where it was he as opposed to he or she. It was, the roles that you would have seen on Father Knows Best or the Brady Bunch, that sort of thing. It was, so please don't be offended. I know him. I got a chance to know him. He was not a sexist. That's just the language that was used back then. So please pardon that. The book is absolutely magnificent. And so those are just some of the books and some of the thoughts regarding that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
My
it seems
pleasure.
safe to say from that bookshelf that you believe in being a lifelong learner.
Yeah, I always say my house is comprised of books with some scattered furniture.
Well, that's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Bob. I've enjoyed it. I think everybody else on here has as well.
Oh, thank you.
And if you have any time to hang out a few, I want to hear a little bit from Scott, who I think is a Kansas City go-giver, and hear a little bit about what's inspired you, Scott, as what led you down this path to go out and build the network you did and build programs like Top Guns, where you've created opportunity for people in business to meet each other, learn about each other. What sent you on this journey?
This is really weird to be on the same phone call as Bob, and then a bunch of people I used to have to beg for meetings to get a meeting with them. So feel really awkward. It's like you're supposed to have the opening act go first. And then now when I see everyone drop off this call, I'll be like, well, okay, I expect that. But what inspired me, I want to be careful with everyone's time. Grew up dyslexic, didn't know it. And so I was always the popular jock, but I was nice to everyone because I didn't know what was on the test. And throughout college, same deal, needed help. And so I had really bad grades, and I graduated in the recession in 2010 with a degree that wasn't a good degree from the University of Kansas. Not that University of Kansas is a good degree, it's communications. And I was waiting tables at the Blue Moose because if you wanted a bartending gig, you had to have 5 years of experience in a college degree at the time. And so I just started knocking door to door, and it was so wonderful to meet Travis yesterday, who's with Creative Planning. He's a law enforcement officer, because he actually understood when I said that I had to replace my black shoes every 3 months, because as you get out of the door of your car, you're turning on your left heel. And when you're cold calling that much, you do wear out your left heel of your shoe. And as someone in law enforcement, he gets that as he's getting out of his car. And so the reason I became a go-giver is because I had no other option. I'd love to say that I thought it was morally the right thing to do, and you should always help everyone. But, you know, I have a lot of mentors that are on this call today. But, you know, I was rejected by Harry Campbell 3 times before I met him, but I knew his favorite restaurant was Ingredient. And if I knew I had a sales pitch good enough, I could get him. And same with Mike Pittman. So I don't really, I'm not as good as Bob, and I don't always do the go-giver mentality because I think you need to have a good sales pitch to meet with someone. So a lot of what I do is my business really took off about 3-4 years ago when I broke up with everyone that was taking. And so for me, when Chris is new to town from the East Coast and his wife moves here to be a physician and represent Advent Health, or when Travis is making a big leap and he's nervous, I jump at the opportunity to have coffee with them. Now, if it's someone that's local here in town and they have an established network and they're trying to get some deals and sales, that's something where I'll do a phone call and I'll help them. But for me, I've gotten rid of all the takers, and it has skyrocketed my business, and it's gone really well. But I think we should always help those that are in transition, or people in transition that are wanting to learn and help you as well. And I think far too often our calendars just get hammered with people reaching out, and they're not like Andrew Tate, who wants to do all his research ahead of time and make sure that they're providing value to someone else. So I'm probably like 1/30th of Bob, and I can't even believe I'm on the phone. But Bob, thank you in advance for letting Randy do a post about us and me being in the same one, because I totally coasted in your wake on that one. So thank you.
I don't know about that, but thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I can see why so many people think so highly of you just from what I'm hearing in this, you know, talk.
Well, I'm chubby and I'm approachable, and so no one thinks I'm selling anything. But I was curious, Bob, how do you have time to be so active on social media? You commented on everyone's post, and I thought that was wonderful. Is that a practice you always do?
Yeah, I mean, it does take a lot of time. I wish there was some shortcut and some way to kind of systemize it so that it wasn't. But I just hold it to be of high value that when someone mentions me, I just feel the need to you know, to acknowledge that. I wish I could say there was something more to that. It just real.
Yeah, you're grinding. I mean, that's a lot of hard work. I was just super impressed.
I think Mike's got a great question that I'll direct to both of you, maybe to Scott and then to Bob. Mike, do you want to unmute there?
Sure. Bob, fantastic. You've now become my second favorite person next to Scott Havens.
Thank you, Mike.
But I'm curious, it actually is a good question for both of you, but Scott, knowing that you're what I would call a super connector here in Kansas City, how do you prepare for a meeting with somebody? What are you doing to learn about that person before you go to sit down? And I think that question came up, you talked about Andrew wanting to do the research before he got to the meeting. So what do you do to make sure before you sit down, you know who you're sitting across from?
Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Bob, I'm just worried about your time. So you keep, as long as we got your info, we want to absorb it.
Well, thanks. I can answer it very quickly. One of the nicest, best things about the internet is that it makes it very, very, very simple to research someone. Okay. Now you still got to do the homework. You still got to actually make the effort and read what you can about them and find out what you can. I like to really prepare. Again, it depends upon the situation. But when it's appropriate for that to be the case, I want to know more about that person than that person knows about themselves. I want to know their likes, their dislikes, their as much as I can, their family, occupation, recreation, their main message, what they stand for, their charities, what's going on in their business, in their world. No, again, not in a nosy way, but in a way that helps me to be able to bring as much value to them, whether it's direct business or any other kind of thing. But so again, appropriate is always the key word here. But yeah, so I think it's easier than ever to be able to do that now.
I'm going to give two answers, Mike. One is I am not like Bob, and I'm not a lot of people on the call where I have a national network. I am super hyper focused in Kansas City. So all I need to know is someone's LinkedIn connection. So once I see who they're associated with, I can often tell where they go to church, where they send their kids to school, what non-for-profits they're in, what level they're at. Are they a mover and shaker? Are they the real deal, or are they just connecting with a bunch of people on LinkedIn? So that would be one thing that if I'm not good at 99 things, that's one thing I'm good at that I can go in with 60 seconds of prep and know everything I need to know, and know that Chris is from the East Coast and has a Czech Republic connection before I sit down with him. Now, another example is an example I give a lot when I made a big mistake with Cam Bishop. So Cam Bishop works as a fractional CEO for multiple companies, also helps people transition their business. And when he took over a very large company, close to about 500 employees at the time, I had a friend of mine that goes, "Hey, I was talking to this company and I really think that their CIO needs to be doing this." And so I look at introductions as 9 innings. There's some that you just only need to know the first inning to make an introduction. And then there's some you got to go all the way to the 8th inning and do all your research to know it. Cam lit me up and I deserved it because I made a flippant introduction and they had just over the last 6 months really focused on something. And Cam gave my partner Melissa and I a shot at their business, and we were so lucky he did. He changed our lives. But I messed up big time because I didn't do my research. So it depends upon the level of introduction. If you're firing a bullet to Mike Meyer, who owns Meyer Music, that is all over the media for helping children in need right now get their musical instruments, and you're making a flippant introduction to someone, and I'm going to throw banking under the bus right now, in banking, and you haven't done your research if Mike wants that introduction, that's not a good introduction. So prepping for meetings and prepping for introductions are huge. If you're introducing someone, Linda Endicott can tell you exactly why the two parties should be meeting, and she'll put it in the email so you don't even have to think about it. So I think research is something that none of us coach enough people to do, but it's so wildly important.
I got a message that came through from Mitch, and I think it really hits on something Mary talked about and something Scott talked about, and I'd love to get Bob's perspective on it. You know, Scott, you talked about the takers. Mary talked about, you know, people where you're not making headway. Mitch, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, it's a pleasure to get to hang out with you this morning. My question is really about constantly, Mary hit on constantly giving, 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 and when do you stop giving? How do you go about protecting your time through some of the systems that you've put in place to maybe kind of lean on what Scott talked about, is maybe it's some of the prepping and research, but how do you go about protecting your time as you try and go through life as a go-giver, whether it's personal or professional, and make sure people aren't taking, I don't want to say advantage of, but just trying to protect your time, because it happens very often when your calendar gets slammed.
Great question. And so here is a because remember, a lot of people ask for things. They're not looking to take advantage. They just, and it might be with great intent. But here's the thing. As you get more and more successful, more and more people want something from you, and they want to involve you in things. Again, not by themselves. That's not necessarily bad. It just is. And there simply is not enough time to be able to do everything. Okay, it's one of those things. It's the truth, right? So you have got to be able to say no a lot more often than you say yes. But here's the key. You need to do it in a way that's kind, tactful, respectful, and values that other person. I have a way of saying no to requests that, is very, very effective. I'll take a moment and share it with you if you'd like. There are those two schools of thought that we've learned about saying no, which I think both are counterproductive. And let me briefly share them first. One is that kind of, when people stand there and say, no is a complete sentence. I don't agree with that. Not if you don't want to turn people off and be rude, right? So I get what they mean. I think what the teaching means is it's okay to say no. And I agree with that 100%. But I don't agree with no is a complete sentence. Think about that. Someone asks you to do, and let's take a very generic situation where someone asks you to serve on a committee. And as a successful business person, you'll often be asked to serve on a committee. It's something you really don't want to do. Why? I don't know. You just don't want to. And unless it's something of life-saving importance, you shouldn't do it if you don't want to, okay? For whatever reason you have. Now, if the person asks and you say, no, is that really a complete sentence? I don't think it is. Not if you don't want to turn this person off as a friend, as a potential ally, as someone who when you want to leave the door open to other things. And saying no rudely like that is simply incongruent with your values of treating people with kindness and respect. So I don't agree with that way. We'll also hear people say, well, just tell a little fib such as, well, I would, but I don't have time. Here's the issue I see with that. We all know that it's not that we don't have time. We make the time to do that which we value. The situation is you don't value doing that thing, being on that committee, as much as you value not being on the committee. And if you say, I don't have time, you've set yourself up for a couple of things. One is that person might say, okay, well, that's fine. Listen, we're doing this again in 3 months. I'll call you then. Now you've got yourself in that same loop. Or they've heard that objection so often, they know how to handle it. And when they persuasively share with you why time isn't an issue, now you're really in a fix. You've either got to admit that you were fibbing to them because you really don't want to do it, and they're going to lose a little respect for you, and you're going to feel kind of yucky about it. Or in order to save face, you've got to take this assignment, be on this committee, which you don't want to do. So let me share with you a very simple way of saying no to something like this. Okay. It's simply this. You know, you're asked to serve on a committee and you say, thank you so much. While it's not something I'd like to do, please know how honored I am to be asked. That's it.
Wow.
Now, depending upon your style, it might be, oh, thank you so much for asking. While it's not something I choose to take on, please know how grateful I am that you would think to ask me, you know, however your style is. Here's what you really did and didn't do. You did answer in a way that was polite, it was gracious, kind, respectful. You honored them as a human being. You let them know you were honored to be asked. What you didn't do is come up with an excuse for them to hang their hat on and answer as an objection. You basically, in a very gracious way, let them know that while you appreciate the offer, it's not something that you're going to do. Now, and by the way, 95% of the time, that will be it. It also works on email, phone, in person, text, doesn't matter. Now, if they're the type of person, well-meaning or whatever, who just can't take that first no for an answer, and they say, well, we really, you know, come on, we really, you know, just politely, patiently, no defensiveness on your face, just listen and let them say what they want to say. When they stop, you simply say, again, thank you so much. I'd rather not, but thank you so much for asking. Boom. And you will quickly retrain the people in your life that when you say no, it's no. They can always ask, but that when you say no, and we've got to just be able to practice that a few times. And I'm telling you, it's going to just make such a difference.
Wow, thank you.
One quick thing to add, Mitch, is what you put out there is what you're going to get back. And so, for instance, I'm super guarded Joel Goldberg's time, especially during the season. And he's helped every one of us on this call, and he's been super gracious and super nice. But eventually your time just gets so occupied with meetings that you really can't help the Mitch Cases of the world that are trying to help everyone and that are being a real go-giver. And so I think a lot of it is making sure you're being strategic with your time so that you're helping the givers, not the takers. And also you want to make sure what you're putting out there is what you want in return. And Bob, if there's any way to email Randy what you just said, I know I should be memorizing it, but I think everyone on this phone call, because Randy surrounds himself with a bunch of go-givers, all of us are very similar to each other. And I think we all need that, those words, and also those words are great reminders for all of us on who to help and who we can pass and politely still help, but maybe not take 90 minutes to 2 hours to drive, sit down for an hour, drive back to have coffee.
Yeah, so I actually have a series of videos that, and I'm going to put a link there right now. And please forgive me that I'm.
Now, Bob, as you're talking, I'm gonna interrupt you. Now, if we're trying to get an amazing speaker, like a lot of the speakers here on this call, you know, how do we go about if we have a large corporation, whether it's H&R Block or Verizon or Garmin, and they want you to speak, how do we go about being professional and connecting you to the right person in the way that you want to be connected?
Well, I appreciate that. That's such a wonderful question. And hold on one second, because I'm you know, when it comes to multitasking, I won't even say I'm bad. I'm just non-existent with it. So
I think men can't multitask. That's just
here's the first part of the video that I did with this, called Saying No Respectfully and Politely. This is where I kind of go through the how not to do it. And then let me go back for a second. I'm going to just put the other one on, Saying No Polite Part 2. I'm going to put on here next, and that's where I go through the exact language that I just did. So I don't even know if you have to go to the first one. You can go to the second one. Okay, do you all see them up there? Are they there? Okay. Yeah, so as far as that goes, what I'm doing now is I have sort of stopped, and when I say sort of, I mean absolutely. stopped traveling now to speak at corporate conventions and conferences, which I've done for the last 30 years. What I'm doing now is I'm going to just do them all virtually. So, and now the neat thing is for the actual companies, they get me for a lot less than what they used to pay to have me come to their engagement. But I'm still doing them and doing them now as corporate keynotes and workshops and so forth, just doing them virtually right from here. So anyone who who would be interested in my doing that, please feel free to make that connection with me, and I would enjoy that very much. Thank you for asking.
I think along those lines, Andrew had a question on there just about how folks on here can support your work.
I mean, really, it's just being the people you are. I mean, I think that's how we kind of go out there and just by being, we set the the go-giver example and so forth. So just anyone who you think would enjoy the book, of course, is always someone who we would love to have them do that. I also just put out a recently released, and I'm going to put the URL here. I can't believe the multitasking I'm doing. I'm kind of proud of myself here that I'm doing this without like messing up and shutting down the whole computer system. It's an online course called Endless Referrals, the Go-Giver Way. It's a full online course. So I just put the link to that up here too. And you can check that out if you'd like. But yeah, as far as what you said, just what anyone who thank you, Lauren. Anyone who you think might be interested in the book, whatever, we always just love to, the book's been a word of mouth kind of book, so we always enjoy that. And I do want to credit John David Mann, my co-author, who was really the lead writer and storyteller. I'm a how-to guy, as you can probably tell. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. John's a magnificent writer, and these parables never would have been what they are without his brilliant penmanship or computer keymanship, whatever.
Well, this was fantastic. If you want the book, don't go see Lauren. She said she gave all hers away, so we can't get we can't get any books from Lauren now. So we'll have to go to Amazon instead. But this is great. Great insights from both of you. Awesome questions, and you're right, Scott. There are so many go-givers on this call. Folks here that I see every day, every week, stepping up and helping folks and encouraging people and making a difference in their community. And it's awesome to see. You can't walk away from this feeling bad. Any last questions or comments? Well, appreciate
No,
both
other
of you
than
guys
I would
spending
just
time. Yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
just like to say, Randy, thank you for getting everyone together. I mean, it's funny we're having the go-giver conversation, but I mean, I'm lucky to know about 70-80% of the people on this call, and everyone's just gives and helps others. And I can't believe everyone's on one call at the same time, but I think it's a reflection of how much people love you for what you've done and mentored others. So that's awesome. So thank you. And I know everyone else shares the same sentiment.
Oh, well, thanks.
Look at all those hands. See? That's most alive anyone was.
Well, I will get these notes out to everyone from the comments, and so that you have Bob's links, and then I'll also edit the video down. And then Mary took so many notes. I saw her passionately writing, so she probably has better notes than the recording. Well, everybody have a great weekend. It's awesome to spend time with you, and we'll see each other next week, hopefully. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye.